total nightmare in Avdiivka. Russians in one of their most recent attacks lost up to 70% of their entire infantry. At the same time, something is about to happen in Crimea because Russians bring a lot of air defenses to the peninsula and Ukrainians promise to destroy Crimean bridge. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's get straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. So, today we have a representative of Russian government, Anna Kuznetsova, and she made truly a remarkable, outrageous, ridiculous statement. She basically said whenever Russians were liberating some of Ukrainian villages, they found some very interesting documents. Some kind of a paperwork, which shows that the British private military companies were stealing Ukrainian and Russian kids from the territory of Ukraine and selling them to the highest bidders in America. But one of the biggest buyers of these little humans, was the company, and now let me know in the comments which company you think it is. Right here on the screen you have some suggestions. And well, guys, time to lock in your answers. What do you think it is? Well, the correct answer, the highest, the top buyer of little humans from Ukraine is the company Coca-Cola, according to the Russian propaganda. She even mentioned that 7% of Ukrainian GDP is sponsored with these activities. I mean, you know, like, I always try to kinda think what I'm gonna say in this Russian propaganda segment to make it kinda funny or to make it in some way logical. But this Anna Kuznetsova, she is absolutely reckless in the statements she makes. It is absolutely unspoken, ridiculous. I don't even know what to say here. This is just, I don't even know. The only good thing I do know is that thankfully I'm not drinking that much Coca-Cola, because you never know. What if ridiculous Russian propaganda is real? But okay, now let's get serious as we can, because next we're gonna talk about some statements by Sergei Shoigu. And then we're gonna go to the south of Ukraine and talk about Crimean bridge being fully targeted by Ukrainians. And then we'll finalize everything in the east of the country, where Russians are losing up to 70% of its infantry in one single attack against Avdiivka. And so yes, speaking about Shoigu, these are just the most ridiculous statements he made recently. First of all, he mentioned that Ukrainians are losing in this war. Second thing he mentioned is that Russian army constantly advances every single day. The third thing he mentioned is that the losses of Ukrainians are enormous and that there is a huge demoralization among its people and soldiers. And finally, he mentioned that Russians are able to intercept pretty much every single missile and aircraft that Ukrainians are using, and specifically he mentioned that recently they intercepted, pay attention here, 37 fighter jets of Ukrainians in an extremely short period of time. He did not specify what period of time it is. According to him, probably 1 hour. But honestly, I would not trust much this man with his basic math skills, because according to him, Russians intercepted 8 out of 5 Ukrainian missiles they launched recently. And yes, this is not a mistake. He exactly said 8 missiles out of 5 which were launched. Just like this. But unfortunately, there are some things which are true. And what I'm referring to is that North Korea at this point reportedly sent at least 1 million rounds of munition and artillery to Russia. And this also partially confirmed by the West, so this is not a part of the ridiculous Russian propaganda. But okay, now let's actually get serious and talk about the situation in the south and the promise of Ukrainians to destroy Crimean bridge, and then we'll go to the east. But first of all, guys, if you don't mind, can you please like this video and subscribe to my channel? This does help a lot. And also if you would like to continue receiving such daily updates. And also, there has recently been added a new feature by YouTube, which allows my channel members to get early access to my daily updates. So if you want to see those videos hours before they go live, please consider becoming my channel member as well. Thank you so much. And so yes, first of all, before talking about the situation in the south, there are unfortunately a couple more news. So first of all, Russians were able to destroy an oil refinery located in Crimean, and then also attacked a small private business building located in Nikopol. Both of these civilian buildings were reportedly destroyed. But just overall, Ukrainian air defense in the last 24 hours was able to intercept 18 out of 20 Russian Shahed drones and 1 missile. Then, according to Ukrainian soldiers fighting along the front lines, they were able to destroy a Russian electronic warfare equipment located in Urozhainie. And in addition to that, right here we have a video allegedly from the southern front lines, where Ukrainian artillery was able to destroy a Russian tank from an extremely far location. Reportedly, the total distance it traveled was 19 kilometers. In addition to that, a small drone unit of Russians has been targeted and destroyed by Ukrainians using HIMARS, which on the one hand is a good thing because they're able to eliminate the threat, but it is kinda, on the other hand, is a little bit overkill in my opinion, using HIMARS for such a small target. And speaking about the drones and long-range artillery, right here you have the map with all the Russian military vehicles and equipment which have been destroyed along the Dnipro on the other side. As you can see, impressive results achieved by Ukrainians without even being involved in the direct combat activities. And just overall, in only month of October, the army of drones was able to eliminate 175 Russian tanks, 245 howitzers and 90 self-propelled artillery systems, in addition to other military equipment you see right here. And besides eliminating distant Russian targets, drones also help Ukrainians themselves to advance, especially in extremely complicated areas, such as across Dnipro River, which unfortunately is still in range for the Russian artillery. And just right here, for example, is one of the most recent videos from the other side of Dnipro, which shows how complicated it is to advance for Ukrainians. Pretty much every single meter counts, so it is no wonder that liberation right now is an extremely slow stage, but then it will pick up in geometrical progression. So yes, just like all the previous successful counteroffensive activities by Ukrainians, it was always starting with Ukrainians destroying Russian military equipment from far away. This is exactly what we see right now is happening as well. And speaking about distant targets, the attacks of Ukrainians go even as far as Crimean bridge. You already remember from the past, it was attacked several times by Ukrainians, and they're not planning to stop. Because first of all, as you can see from this video, there was some kind of smoke coming from this bridge. According to Russians, they were just doing or testing a smoke screen or something. But according to the local residents, they did hear some pretty loud noises. Once again, I will leave it up to you who you want to believe. Then we have an extremely interesting statement from Anna Malyar, which is saying, and I'm just quoting her here, that the Crimean bridge is tired. Which basically means, according to her, that Russians are not using it that much as they did in the past to transport their military equipment, either by the regular roads or by rail tracks. And one of the reasons, according to her, it is because obviously Ukrainians can attack it spontaneously at pretty much any point in given time. So it is relatively dangerous for Russians to use it to transport military equipment. And another potential reasons, knowing that Russians are also relatively corrupt, so whenever they were restoring it, probably some savings were made on materials, so it might not be as reliable as before. But then, according to another military expert, Alexander Kovalenko, he is mentioning that Russians are spending almost every single ruble, or not dollar, they have in order to protect Crimean Peninsula, and they do sacrifice other regions in favor of this territory. Basically what he means is that the number of air defense systems on Crimea pretty much exceeds everywhere else in Ukraine. Number one most protected place in the territory of the entire Russia is obviously its capital, Moscow, followed by Crimean Peninsula. And especially such level of protection increased relatively recently. Russians started bringing air defense systems not that long time ago, so it looks like they're kinda preparing for something which is coming to the territory of Crimea. But wait, there is more. According to the spokesperson of Ukrainian Navy, Dmytro Pletenchuk, he is mentioning that the Crimean bridge will be 100% destroyed. But we just need to find the appropriate time to do this. It is not maybe as required, as integral part of the counteroffensive process right now, but eventually the time for bridge will come as well. Just be patient, he says. And ultimately, according to the commander-in-chief of Ukrainian forces, Valery Zaluzhny, and he is referring to the NATO guidelines, whatever it means. So he basically means that it will take Ukrainians approximately 4 months to reach Crimean Peninsula. So as you can see, both Russian and Ukrainian sources point to the facts that something is brewing on this peninsula and will start happening, unveiling very fast and very soon. And so yes, now as promised, let's talk about the situation in the east, where Russians lost up to 70% of its infantry in one single attack. But first of all, let's once again refer to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, which claims that Russians continued their offensive along Kupiansk, Svatovo, Crimean front line. And Ukrainians, on the other hand, were able to destroy a Russian tank along with its assault group located in Pershotravne. And then I have this almost 40 minutes documentary for you guys about Ukrainian combat activities and them trying to liberate Bakhmut. I uploaded this entire documentary on my Patreon for you completely for free, so if you want to check it, please go ahead, the link is down below. And then in Vuhledar we have another video already from the Russian side, where they're trying to use their proclaimed good drones called Lancet, which according to them allegedly are able to distinguish and lock on targets using so-called artificial intelligence. But as a result of this video, you can see that the Lancet drone completely failed its mission. But without a doubt, the most significant losses in the last month for Russians, they were happening around Avdiivka. To be honest, it might even surpass the number of losses of Russians in Bakhmut if the situation continues in the same way as Russians do right now. And knowing the love of the Russian leadership for symbolic victories and their Second World War military tactics, I will not be surprised if they decide to change nothing. As of right now, according to already Western military experts, Russians completely failed their offensive against Avdiivka. Originally, the plan was to breach Ukrainian defenses as fast as possible, surround the city and capture it. As you can see, it did not work. Originally, Russians were using infantry along with the combat vehicles with the support of artillery to do this offensive, but later they just switched to completely unprotected infantry. No military vehicles, no artillery, no nothing. Just regular men running across the open field, hoping not to be targeted by Ukrainians. So without a doubt, it is worth mentioning, and this is pretty obvious, that the majority or even all of these attacks, they end up in a complete failure. And recently it looks like even worse for the Russian army. According to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, they switched to a so-called Storm Z assault groups, which are, according to the Russian military correspondents in that area, are pretty much people without sometimes even basic personal protection. They just run across the field, hoping to reach their final destination, and then they do not even know what else to do, because they're not able to breach heavily protected Ukrainian defenses. And the losses of such assault so-called groups are estimated to be anywhere between 40 to 70% of the entire infantry personnel per each attempt to attack. And what are even those Storm Z assault groups, you might ask? Well, according to the British intelligence report, these are basically ex-convicts, some low-priority soldiers, some people who broke discipline, the ones who do not follow military orders, traitors, deserters. You get the idea. So basically Russians send them in the very first lines of attacks, obviously hoping that majority of them will not go through this, and then hopefully while they are being the distraction, the actual conventional Russian forces, they start advancing either behind them or somewhere else. And in case most of Storm Z assault groups are eliminated or being injured, they are not even receiving the priority in medical assistance. You can only imagine the morale of Russian forces knowing that such groups, military battalions, whatever you want to call them, knowing that they still exist. And at this point, this is already a common fact that the number of Russian prisoners decreased significantly in the last 2 years, because most of them are simply sent as volunteers to Ukraine, but where still Russia gets even more forces for such crazy attacks. Well, according to Dmitry Medvedev, the number of volunteers who also started doing contracts with the Russian military increased significantly as well. According to him, as of right now, these are 1,600 people per day on average. And as of right now, since the beginning of this year, 2023, Russia employed approximately almost 400,000 soldiers. According to Dmitry Medvedev, most of them are volunteers and contract soldiers. And I mean, imagine, who will train them? This is such a massive number. A lot of experienced soldiers are already eliminated in Ukraine, so there's simply even no one who can share the experience. For this reason, it is no longer also a secret that a lot of Russian fresh conscripts, they're being sent to fight with almost little to none preparations or combat training. And as a result of this, some of them cannot even reach the front lines before being eliminated, such as for example these new reinforcements for Chuvash battalion, and there was the entire convoy of approximately 120 people, and it was completely obliterated by Ukrainians, so reinforcements never came. So as you can see, this partial mobilization in Russia started in September last year, pretty much was never over. Russians continue to hire, employ and volunteer soldiers, even though majority of them were forced into the army. I'm almost 99% certain. And they just keep throwing them into the front lines, making minimal gains at maximum losses. Absolutely barbaric strategy by the Russian military commandment and Russian officials. And in the meantime, their own Ministry of Defense keeps saying that Russians are prevailing, winning, Ukrainians are losing, and the Russian army is constantly advancing while Ukrainians are constantly retreating. So I mean, imagine if you are a Russian soldier, you see one reality right in front of your eyes, and then some guy who never even went to the army and became a Minister of Defense, by the way, he then says you that, don't worry, guys, you are winning. Everything is under control. So it is no surprise that more and more Russian soldiers, they refuse to fight. They are completely demoralized, hopeless, and they see no sense in this war which Putin started, and he made them fight for him, while sitting far away in one of his multiple bunkers. And obviously, wars are not won with just advanced military equipment. The morale and the spirit of soldiers also plays an incredibly big part. And eventually, all it will take in the future is just one major event, which might look insignificant at first, to start a major chain reaction. So if you are also intrigued as me, what is it going to be? Maybe a destruction of Crimean bridge? By the way, can you please subscribe to my channel if you don't want to miss it? That only takes one click. And if you want to see fully uncensored episodes of The Russian Dude, please go ahead and check my Patreon. The support for my work starts only as little as $4 per month, and there is 1 week of free access for you to see if you like it or not. Thank you so much my patrons for your support, and see you tomorrow.